You know that feeling when you set aside time to relax and somehow you end up feeling more anxious than before you started? It's not because you're doing it wrong. It's because relaxation, when forced, stops being relaxation at all. Most people assume they're just bad at unwinding. They think if they were better at self-care, or more disciplined, or less stressed to begin with, then maybe a hot bath or a meditation app would actually work. But the problem isn't you. The problem is what happens in your nervous system when you try to command it to calm down. Your body doesn't respond well to performance pressure, and that includes the pressure to relax. When you sit down with the explicit goal of feeling peaceful, you've already created a task. You've turned rest into something you need to succeed at. And your brain, which is very good at tracking whether you're meeting goals, starts monitoring your progress. Am I calm yet? Is this working? Why do I still feel tense? That monitoring is the opposite of letting go. It's vigilance. And vigilance is a state of low-level threat detection, which means your nervous system stays partially activated even while you're trying to convince it to power down. Research into relaxation-induced anxiety shows that some people experience a sharp increase in discomfort when they try to relax, especially if they're already anxious or stressed. It's not rare. It's common enough to have a name, and it happens because relaxation removes distraction. When you stop moving, stop working, stop scrolling, you're left with whatever you've been avoiding. That might be physical tension you didn't realize you were carrying, or it might be emotions you've been too busy to feel. Your mind interprets that sudden awareness as danger, because if you've been functioning fine while pushing something down, and then it surfaces the moment you slow down, your system assumes slowing down is the problem. So it resists. It makes you restless. It convinces you that you'd feel better if you just got up and did something, and sometimes you would. Because for some people, action is genuinely more regulating than stillness. Think about what happens when you finally sit down after a long day. You've been moving for hours. Your body's been in output mode. Then you stop. And within minutes, you notice your heartbeat. You notice the tightness in your shoulders. You notice that your thoughts are louder than they were when you were busy. It's not that these things weren't there before. It's that you're finally paying attention. And paying attention, without the option to fix or avoid what you notice, can feel unbearable. This is why scrolling your phone often feels easier than meditating. Scrolling gives your mind something to do. It's not rest, but it's not demanding either. It's a middle ground where you're not performing and you're not confronting anything. You're just occupied. And for a nervous system that equates stillness with vulnerability, occupied feels safer than empty. The same thing happens when you try to take a proper lunch break at work. You sit down, away from your desk, with the intention of actually resting for 30 minutes. But within 5 minutes, you're thinking about the emails you haven't answered. You're mentally rehearsing a conversation you need to have later. You're feeling guilty for not being productive. The break, which was supposed to help you recharge, becomes another source of stress because your system doesn't know how to stop tracking threats and demands. Or consider the weekend. You tell yourself you're going to do nothing. You're going to sleep in, move slowly, let the day unfold without a plan. But by midday, you're anxious. You feel like you're wasting time. You start cleaning, organizing, catching up on things you didn't have time for during the week. Not because you want to, but because doing nothing feels wrong. It feels irresponsible, and that feeling is your nervous system rejecting rest, because rest, in your context, has become associated with falling behind. The cultural obsession with relaxation routines doesn't help. We're told that baths, candles, journaling, breathing exercises, these are supposed to fix us. And when they don't, we assume we're broken. But a bath is just warm water. A candle is just a smell. These things can be pleasant, but they're not therapeutic unless your system is ready to receive them. And if your system is in a state of hyperarousal, where it's scanning for threat or bracing for the next demand, then no amount of lavender oil is going to override that. You can't think your way into calm. You can't decide to feel safe. Safety is something your body concludes based on context. And if the context of your life is chronic low-level stress, then 20 minutes of deep breathing isn't going to rewrite that conclusion. It might help in the moment. It might not. But either way, it's not a failure on your part if it doesn't. What makes this worse is that relaxation is often framed as a reward. You're told you've earned it, you deserve it, and that framing turns it into something you're supposed to enjoy. So when you don't enjoy it, when you feel worse or more agitated or guilty for not being grateful, you've now failed at something that was supposed to be effortless. You've turned rest into another thing you're not good enough at. This is the trap. Relaxation becomes work, and work, by definition, cannot relax you. There's also the issue of timing. A lot of people try to relax only when they're already at their limit. They wait until they're burned out, exhausted, or on the edge of breaking down, and then they try to fix it with a weekend off or a yoga class. But by that point, Their system is so dysregulated that rest feels destabilizing. It's like trying to sleep when you're overtired. Your body is too activated to surrender. It doesn't trust that it's safe to let go. Think about the person who works 60-hour weeks and then books a vacation. They imagine they'll finally unwind, but the first few days, they're sick, or they can't sleep, or they're irritable and restless. Their body, which has been running on adrenaline and cortisol for months, doesn't know how to shift gears. The vacation becomes frustrating because they're waiting to feel the way they think they're supposed to feel. And when it doesn't happen, they blame themselves for not being able to enjoy it. And here's the uncomfortable part. Sometimes you feel worse after trying to relax because you're finally feeling what you've been overriding. The tension was always there. The exhaustion was always there. You were just functioning on top of it. And when you stop functioning, you drop into it. That's not relaxation failing. That's awareness arriving. And awareness, especially of discomfort, doesn't feel good. It's like when you've been holding your breath without realizing it, and then suddenly you gasp for air. The gasp isn't pleasant. It's urgent and uncomfortable. But it's necessary. That's what happens when you stop distracting yourself from your own state. You finally notice how much you've been holding, and the noticing feels like too much. It also doesn't mean you shouldn't try to rest. It just means rest isn't a switch you flip. It's a state your body has to feel safe enough to enter. And if your baseline is vigilance, if you've spent years in environments that required you to stay alert, productive, or on edge, then your body might not recognize rest as an option. It might interpret it as neglect, as letting your guard down, as risk. This is especially true if you grew up in an unpredictable environment. If rest meant you'd miss something important, or if being idle was criticized or punished, then your nervous system learned that safety requires constant readiness. And that lesson doesn't disappear just because you're now an adult with control over your schedule. The programming runs deeper than logic. It runs in the part of you that makes decisions before you're consciously aware of them. This doesn't mean you're damaged. It means your system learned to survive in a certain way, and it's still running that program even when the conditions have changed. It's doing what it was trained to do, and retraining it takes more than intention. It takes repetition, safety, and time. Things that a single self-care Sunday can't provide. So no, you're not failing at relaxation. You're just discovering that relaxation isn't something you perform. It's something that happens when the conditions allow it. And if the conditions of your life don't allow it, then no amount of trying harder is going to change that. You'd need to change the conditions. And that's a much bigger, slower, more complicated thing than lighting a candle and hoping it works.